This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
FanandBigDeck.com. Want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks. It is our national cash contest. 4 o'clock keyword is cash. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword cash.
This is the first Western Conference Final since 1996, which does not include a team from California or Texas.
I saw that.
Is that legit? That's an interesting stat.
It feels legit. San Antonio, Golden State, Lakers.
Yeah.
Houston, they were in one once, weren't they?
Gunbelt tight, yeah, of course. Interesting. Who knew? Quick text. Will we see Ant wake up a little and enter superstar mode? It seems like he's been a little flat. Shaq mentioned something about him needing to play at that next elite level. I do think it's a tricky deal because, and Johnny alluded to it, because I think part of what makes the Wolves potentially dangerous moving forward is he has not played with that fixation of scoring 40 every night, whether he's missing 18 straight shots. He has tended to play more to the game. Last game, I think he ended up with 12 assists. In fact, I think that was his career high for assists in a game. And look, there's probably going to be a game where he's going to need to go off offensively.
Yeah.
But I think what's more important is he goes off offensively for maybe a 6-minute stretch, right, where he gets 9 points in half a quarter or finishes a quarter with 2 straight threes or whatever. The maturity of him, I think the maturation process for him is he's figuring out how to play the game. And that's all that, in a way, makes the Wolves more dangerous because if there are other people that he can hit who are open and are making shots, then all that matters is the team is functioning well and smoothly offensively. So that can be without Edwards necessarily going for 40. There might be a game that he needs to get 40 or needs to get 36. But I actually think it makes, again, the Wolves more versatile if he's just managing the game and still impacting it with the ball in his hands by getting the ball to the right people. By definition, that means not forcing it, right? Which we've seen him do and which rarely ends well, right? It in fact, often ends very poorly for the Wolves.
Well, game 4 against the Lakers, he had 43. And then I would say in this last series, the stretch where they needed him, the third quarter of game 4,
right,
when the Wolves basically just ended the series, he was magnificent, right? I mean, that was the stretch you're talking about, like the 6 or 7 minute stretch where he's hitting, he hit 3 or 4 threes, playing great defense. They didn't need him to go for 40 against the Golden State Warriors. Everybody knew that. Everybody knew they were overmatched. Lakers, I thought he was much more aggressive, and we saw some of that. But yeah, he does. I bet there's a game or two here where he's going to need to have 35, 40 points.
But again, if you look at his averages for this postseason run, he's averaging 27.6 points a game.
Yep.
1.2 steals, 4.5 assists, 5.7 rebounds. He's shooting almost 45% from the floor overall, and 39.5, which is pretty close to, I think, regular season. He was at 40, wasn't he? Right in that range. Excuse me. That's my bad. I'm looking at his regular season numbers. Let's get to the postseason numbers, which are actually even a little bit better. He's averaging 26.5. That's his scoring average in the postseason. He's shooting, actually it's pretty similar. 44.5% from the floor overall in the postseason and 38.5 from 3. So he's a little less. He's like a percentage point down from where he was. 8 rebounds, which is the most in his postseason so far through 4 postseasons, and almost 6 assists. Those are damn good numbers. Now, again, Gilgeous-Alexander is over 30, I think, is scoring average.
Yeah.
But those are great all-around numbers. And, again, I don't want to say Shaq's just looking at scoring, but I think sometimes that's what guys look at to go, well, did he get 42? Well, there may be times he needs 42, but there's a lot of ways to influence games, and I think overall his game's just got to get tighter in terms of turnovers, right?
For sure.
That's what has to get
He's led the Wolves in rebounding 4 times. He's led the Wolves in assists 6 times out of their 10 games.
Turnover average is 2.3 this year. That's a 1 turnover less on average than a year ago in the postseason. So even that, I think it felt worse late because there were a lot of them in the the end of the Golden State series. All right, let's get caught up. Grant in your hand, or I should say bonus bucks time?
I did it coming back because we came back at 4:10.
All right, we'll do that. We'll take a quick pause. Don't forget, Mitch Lawrence is going to join us at about 4:30. We've got Ode to a Dead Guy to get to. His nickname is Windy, correct?
Yes, Brian Windhorst.
Brian Windhorst, ESPN. And he had an interesting observation or two regarding the aforementioned Julius Randle, who's gotten a lot of attention, a lot of stuff written on him, a lot of bouquets thrown his way because he's earned them. He's had a terrific playoff run thus far. He may be, I'm not going to say he's been the best player of the postseason thus far, but I'm going to say he's the best emerging player. He's a story that there was almost nobody talking about Julius Randle when the playoffs began. Almost nobody. They may have said, okay, well, he was part of the big trade and how are the Wolves going to handle it. But now he's become a major topic of conversation. And let's hear a couple of observations that Windy had regarding Randle's run through the first 2 rounds for the Wolves.
I want to tell you about this last series he played with the Warriors. He averaged 25, 7, and 7. 6'9", point forward, averaging those kind of numbers. Who does that remind you of? How about LeBron James? He's acting like a miniature LeBron James in this postseason. Wow. Being a force with his size, being able to be a playmaker, being able to play different roles on offense, different roles on defense, creating all kinds of havoc for what he's able to do with the ball live when he gets in that triple threat position. I mean, this type of player next to Ant is what's taking the Wolves to the next level. The reason that they are here is because of the way they played down the stretch, and the way they played down the stretch was because of how Randle came back from the injury combined with Ant Edwards. That is what has them live as a real championship contender.
Truth is not controversial, I don't think. It sounds awfully effusive, that praise, but I think there's a lot of truth to it. Unfortunately for Windy, he apparently did make the mistake. He committed the grievous blunder of picking the Boston Celtics to beat the Knicks. In the last round. And as a result, as he was leaving the Garden, he's apparently pelted. There's video of him being pelted with garbage by stupid-ass Knicks fans.
I hope we don't do that stuff.
I thought that was what Philly fans... I actually thought New York fans were a cut above that nonsense. But apparently there was a Pacers fan.
Yeah.
I think also out in that celebration area outside the Garden wearing a Halliburton jersey, and he got pelted with stuff, and Halliburton has invited him to, I don't know if it's game 1?
Game 4.
Or is it game 4 in Indianapolis? Okay, he's going to set it up for him. So
yeah, they did that on the McAfee show yesterday. It was very cool.
You make predictions in this business. Some of them are right. A lot of them are wrong. And you got to be able to get razzed for it, mocked, ridiculed, have fun with it. But in all seriousness, are we really at a place where we're going to throw garbage at a guy who picked the same team that most people picked when the series began, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they pick the Celtics were the defending world champions? There weren't a lot of people who thought the Knicks could win the series. Bully for them that they fought through it, down 20, 20, and 14 in 3 games, and they won them all, which is to their credit. It is to Tibbs' credit, I might add. But the idea that we're gonna for a prediction we're gonna throw stuff at people. I mean, I get it. They're probably drunken idiots and they're excited. Windy guy, big windbag over there. Let's start throwing bananas at him because there was a lot of fruit out there. Apparently, I don't know if there was like a fruit truck. They were at some point they were throwing pineapples at people, which I would think would kind of hurt, wouldn't it?
That's why, honestly, I think. At some point, we need to have a reckoning with the whole prediction business.
Well, maybe.
Right? Because none of us really know.
Speaking of predictions, what is yours? I meant to get to that a lot sooner, and then we got waylaid. Does Guardsy have an official prediction for this series?
Oklahoma Panhandle, Minnesota Manhandle. What scent is Dan's candle? Wolves in 5. Actually, I don't know. I wanted to pull up the last one to the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line. I think they're going to win.
Yeah, and we're going to get. We've
I don't
already
know if
gotten
it's
ripped
6
today
or 7
for being homers. I go. I mean, your job is to offer an opinion.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think I'm a homer all that much. I don't think you. Well, you are a little bit more when it comes to the Gophers,
For sure.
but you would acknowledge that to a degree.
Yeah. Well, and the Wolves. I love the Wolves.
Yeah, you love the Wolves. But I mean, we're making picks here. But go ahead. I interrupted you.
Like I said at the beginning, none of us really know how things are going to go, right? But
No.
I think they know they have to clean up the turnovers. I think they are going to play their best series. The last series, to me, drawing grand conclusions, besides Randall playing great, to me is almost irrelevant because everybody knew what the deal was that
inevitable.
last series.
You're right.
Whatever happened, it was inevitable.
And they made it inevitable in the first round, which is to the Wolves' credit.
Exactly.
Yes.
They love being an underdog.
Yeah.
They are a massive underdog by the betting numbers, by the metrics of as the series starts tonight. So I think they're going to be sharp. I think the pressure is on Oklahoma City, certainly in these first 2 games. I think Anthony Edwards does have another gear that he's going to hit. And I'm curious to see how it all plays out. But I think they're, for whatever the reason, I think they're going to learn from last year too. Like last year, I think all of us thought they were, oh, here come the Mavs.
Mm-hmm.
What are they? Well, we weren't really paying attention that they were really good the last 4 months of the season after the trade deadline, and we know what Luka did to everybody. So I think they remember that from a year ago. I think that starts tonight in terms of how they approach it, and I just think they're going to win. I could be dead wrong, but I feel like this is their time.
If they lost.
No, of course
Neither
not.
would I. That's the thing. There's nothing shocking about it. Oklahoma City is really good, but you make the picks is what you do, and it's not a matter of being a cheerleader. It's a matter of, I mean, how many years were we hammering away, mocking and ridiculing this franchise? We weren't doing it for the hell of it. We were doing it. I was certainly doing it because I thought they deserved it. And now I think they're in a position where they deserve a lot more praise. They still have to do it. That's all stating the obvious. Let's see what Mitch Lawrence has cooked up. He's going to join us. We'll get kind of a national perspective away from the metropolitan area and maybe talk a little bit about the Eastern Conference Finals as well. Maybe he would. I wonder if he would throw any stuff at Windy. We'll find out all of that and more with our guy Mitch Lawrence next. Mitch Lawrence time, longtime National Basketball Association writer, frequent contributor to this program, especially this time of year. It's been a lot easier to finesse bonus Mitch appearances in recent years because the Wolves are actually making the playoffs every year.
It's so nice.
I mean, once upon a time, we can go 20 years without making the playoffs, and it was harder to stay connected, even though the NBA playoffs continue to be played, even though the Wolves were not participating in it.
We talked a lot of draft lottery with Mitch over the years.
We did. That's very, very true. And Mitch Lawrence, we occasionally talked about your good friend, former sports writer David Kahn. Remember Kanzi?
Who can forget?
You can forget him.
Especially up your way. How you doing, all right?
I'm all right. How about you?
I'm doing fine. I was just saying I'm picking the Wolves in this series.
You are?
Yes, I am.
Interesting.
Yep. I think I just there's a lot of things I like about for them this matchup, and I own Oklahoma City. A lot of people are picking.
Yes.
I think nationally they're the pick. Coming on, everybody's talking about how they grew against Denver. I think they should have won that series in 5 or 6 games, and it took them a full 7. Of course, 7 they just annihilated them. But I think Minnesota's defense is going to present a lot of problems that they did not see against Denver. They're bigger, more athletic, longer Minnesota than Denver's defense. I think they're a deeper team. I think they're a better team. And I think their experience last year of getting to a conference finals, and that, to me, that Dallas team for them was a nightmare because of Luka and Kyrie and the way, their offense kind of rolled over them. They're not going to, I think that's going to equip them very well for this series, just as I think in the other, in the East, and I think Indiana's looking up saying, well, we get the Knicks. We don't have to get last year's Celtics like we got annihilated last year. It's kind of an easier road for them, too. It'll both be tough series, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if we have a Indianapolis-Minneapolis finals.
Interesting. Yeah. Let's stay with the East for a minute, because on this show we've done a lot on this series on the Wolves, and we'll get back to it with you as well to give you a chance to sort of elaborate on your prediction which is the same as mine, same as Guardsy's, actually, same as Sam Mitchell's. Sam had the Wolves winning it in 6 via text. We're going to have him on later in the week as well. So Knicks Pacers, to me, I have to say the Pacers are as I can't say I know more than 5 names, but they are as entertaining a pro basketball team as I think exists in the NBA right now. I love the way they play. I love that pace. Can they be stopped in that pace? I mean, are there things the Knicks can do that can get in the way of the way the Pacers like to play?
Well, the Knicks, the way the Knicks play defense against Boston before Jason Tatum went down, for Knicks fans was a revelation because this team changed its identity with the trade of Karl Anthony Towns and became much more of an offensive-minded team, less of the defense. We're going to grind it out and we're going to, play gritty basketball. And so I think, the Knicks can, slow them down. I think, though, it's going to be hard. And I think this makes for a much higher scoring series than we're going to get out west. But I think, the Knicks have a great chance. They've got the home court. I think they can play the requisite defense at times. The thing that they, I think the thing here is that unlike Boston, who blew, 220-plus point leads or whatever in a 14-point lead, I don't think Indiana's going to take all of a sudden take the back off because I don't think they're just going to just chuck up threes like Boston did. And, that whole thing was just ludicrous. The way that Joe Mazzulla didn't change things up for his team, didn't get them to play a different way until Tatum basically got hurt. They won't take the pedal off the metal. They are going to continue to try to score the way they do, moving the ball they're just like, you're right. They're entertaining. The last team, the Warriors with Durant when he was there was a phenomenal offense. That team was like a juggernaut team that, you had Curry and Klay Thompson, and you had Kevin Durant. I mean, that's ridiculous. That was just an embarrassment of riches offensively, and they could stop you too. But this Indiana team, with less superstar power, they still get it done.
Now, coaching matchups can be overcooked about one guy out coaching the other at this level. They're all pretty damned accomplished and pretty good, and any team that keeps fighting, despite being down, as you said, 20, and 14, they are responding pretty well to Tibbs. But Carlisle does strike me. We were talking to Trent Tucker yesterday, who actually played a little bit with Carlisle, that Carlisle, he is sometimes people forget when they talk about some of the best coaches in the league. I think he gets short shrift, and I think we're seeing that again. The guy knows how to coach. You
know what? Tom Thibodeau knows this is going to be a tougher series than going up against Joe Mazzulla.
Yeah.
Joe Mazzulla won a title. But Rick Carlisle's coached 160-plus playoff games. He's won a title in Dallas. He's a hell of he's a guy who came up. I remember when he was Chuck Daly's video guy coordinator with the New Jersey Nets way, way back in the day, around 1993, and worked his way into some great positions, whether it was, Indiana, Detroit. He also in Dallas, and he's a very good he's a very good coach. He's a little quirky, but he's really good. And I think for Tom Thibodeau, this is going to be a big challenge because, to me, a guy like Rick Carlisle, he is going to make adjustments on the fly that you didn't get from Joe Mazzulla, who just continued to let his team just play one way.
I don't get it.
Rick Carlisle is going to figure things out, I think, on the fly a little bit better, and especially, change-ups and adjustments between games. And I think this is going to be a really, really good. And it's, it's much different than what we're going to see out west with Daniel and Chris Finch, who don't have the playoff resumes of these guys. And, obviously Rick winning a title gives him kind of a heads up over everybody else.
No question. I think so. Are you taking the Pacers officially in this series?
Yeah, I mean, I really haven't. You're the first person I've told this to. But yeah, I could see them winning. I wouldn't be surprised at all because I think, first of all, here's the deal. Like I said, the Pacers are going into a series knowing they've been to a conference finals last year and they pretty much got handled by a Boston team. Let's not forget, nobody talks about this, but the Boston team last year set a franchise record with 10 straight playoff wins. Last 3 wins of the Cleveland second round, the 4-game sweep of the Pacers, the first 3 games against Dallas. I mean, that was an extraordinary playoff run. They lost to a really good team that lost like 3 playoff games the whole year. The Pacers now go in against a Knicks team. This is the first time they're in the conference finals since 2000. This Knicks team hasn't done anything. I think the Pacers can figure out a way to win in the Garden. And let's face it, too. All the pressure to me is on the Knicks in this series. The fans of New York are just so starved for a title. First would be the first since 1973, that there's an enormous amount of pressure on this team to at least get to a final for the first time since, 1999, when they got there against the Spurs and they didn't have Ewing and they got pretty much handled easily. But New York, there's so much pressure on these Knicks players, on Thibodeau, on the whole organization, because everybody feels like they should now get past Indiana with the home court, with the way Jalen Brunson's playing, and get to a finals. You know what? Tom Thibodeau's probably, worried about that aspect in terms of just how his players comport them, how they react, because you can just imagine the players and the Knicks getting tight in big spots in the Garden if it comes down to that, because Indiana is playing much more with house money in this series than the Knicks.
So, let's getting back to the Wolves OKC series. During the break, actually, before you joined the program, I was had the sound up on Kornheiser and Wilbon. And Kornheiser, I think he picked Oklahoma City. Then he also said part of it for him is that, he was more impressed with Okie City beating Denver. Obviously, they had some injuries, but they still had 2 very good star players available compared to what the Wolves did with Steph Curry, obviously, injured in game 1. Does he have a point where you say, that you could argue that Denver shouldn't have lasted 7 games, but they did have Murray and Joker and a couple of other really good pieces, if not great depth. And the Wolves, let's face it, I mean, you're almost obligated to beat Golden State if Steph's not on the court for most of the series.
Right, I can see you make that argument. But I also look at it in terms of now, how does Oklahoma City, first time in the conference finals since way back when they had Kevin Durant. This is the first trip for these guys. There's a lot of pressure on this team to get to a finals. I mean, even though it's kind of been a quick playoff deal for them, this is only year 2. Everybody expects a 68-win team to get there. So there's more pressure on them than Minnesota. Minnesota, I know they haven't played in several months, but acquitted themselves very well in the 2-2 split, including winning a game in Oklahoma City, which isn't easy to do. So they're not going to be in awe. It's not going to basically, they're going to be fine playing down there. I don't think they're going to come unglued. I think their defense, the way they handle SGA with some special trapping up top and getting the ball to other people, I think that's going to be a factor. And I'll tell you the other factor, too. Jalen Williams, he had one great quarter against Denver, that second quarter of Game 7, that's where true. He made 8 baskets, which was, more than he had in like 5 games combined totally. SGA had a lot of help from him, and I've always wondered, in a big spot, who's going to be the second guy.
Great point.
And I think Minnesota now has Edwards playing, and Randall's playing the greatest playoff basketball of his life. That could continue. I just don't know. I just have my doubts that, look, Oklahoma City, they played a better team than in the last round, but that doesn't mean anything now. Now you got to beat a Minnesota team that's playing great. They've got big time scoring, and they have the type of defense. And here's the big thing. The one thing that Oklahoma City did that really killed Denver was they turned them over a million times. The last game was ridiculous. They forced 20-plus turnovers, turning into 30-plus points. The whole series was just ridiculous. And it was amazing in the 7-game series, the turnover disparity. Minnesota can't afford to do that because nobody plays better taking those turnovers and converting into points, baskets than Oklahoma City. So I think that's a huge concern. That would be a big concern if you're Chris Finch. We'll see how they do in that. If they can take care of the ball and keep their turnovers down, they're going to have a great chance to win, because I do think they have right now the type of team that can take Oklahoma City out in 6 games. It's not going to be. I don't think they can win a 7th game necessarily.
Yeah,
but I think they can win a series in 6.
Well, as you mentioned, now if you want to, there are some people who want to boil it down to, okay, whose number 2 is better? That may well determine the series, because if we assume Shea's going to be good, we assume Anthony Edwards is going to be good. Maybe it comes down to who wins that particular tussle. And as you said, Williams has been shooting very poorly until that. He had a breakthrough quarter. Maybe that's going to open it up for him completely. Randall, I'm looking at Randall's numbers from the Warriors series. 29 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. 31 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. 24 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists in that triple-double game. And 24 points, 7 rebounds, 11 assists. That's the last 4 games that the Wolves all won. He's shooting well over 50%. He's averaging 25 for the series. It has been a breakthrough period for Randall. Now, he's got to continue it, and I got to believe Okie City, they got great defense, and they're going to challenge him in a way that perhaps he hasn't been challenged to this point, but he has definitely emerged. There's no question.
At one point, he used to be a playoff liability. He used to be a guy who would get you more turnovers than baskets in the series or in a game. And we saw that, obviously, in New York, and that's what there were a lot of Knicks fans that soured on him. They were happy to see him go because they thought, you know what, he'll never be the playoff performer. They're probably astounded as well as he's played, and maybe the Knicks, maybe Tom Thibodeau is too. Yeah. But it is a credit to him. I saw also, you have to love it was a tough transitional period for when they first got him. I saw Steve Kerr address that after the series, saying it looked like it didn't work, but they finally figured things out. And, that takes time, but people want to, everybody wants the instant gratification. They want you to do stuff, in 5 minutes, where it takes time when you bring in a new critical piece to get everybody together to play on the same page and everybody to figure out their roles. And he has been unbelievable. So you're right. It may come down to that. The other thing that I like about Minnesota versus Denver is that Denver was exploited constantly by, Hartenstein and Holmgren when it came to lobs and that type of stuff. And I don't think you're going to get, I don't see Minnesota with their back line, their bigs, giving up that type of stuff. I think this is going to be a tougher series for Oklahoma City to score that type of way. That's a big part of their offense.
Did you ever cover a game at Oklahoma City?
Yes.
Well, is it as what, because everybody says that it's the closest thing in the NBA to a college atmosphere.
It is. Well, and now for me, this goes back about 10 years, but I did a Oklahoma City Spurs series that the Spurs actually won. I think that got them to the finals in either 13 or 14. And I've done regular season games when the Knicks went in there, and I've done 2 or 3 playoff series. That is a crazy crowd. It is. Those people. You see the way they dress. No other arenas like that. That's like the college thing where everybody wears the same colored T-shirts that they hand out. They have a great home court. But, Denver went in there and they won a game. And so it's not like walking into Boston Garden against the 86 Celtics and trying to win a playoff game. They can be beat down there. And I think that probably got their attention more than anything else, that they know they just can't go out there and say, hey, we're playing at home. We've got one of the great crowds here. That means Minnesota's just going to lay over and die. Minnesota's played in some tough places too. Maybe not as tough as the playoff series as Oklahoma City. But, these guys are, listen, now that this is, they've had some playoff runs here. I don't think they're going to get unglued by anything when it comes to playoff crowds.
So you mentioned, Finch is an interesting case. John Krasinski for The Athletic, who covers the Wolves really well and joins us every week. We had him on earlier. He's got a great piece sort of laying out part of what you just alluded to, that he's a very stubborn guy who likes to sort of let things breathe. And that included not losing his mind when the marriage between Randall and the Wolves did not look good. It looked very, very bumpy. And that he is a guy, and by the way, he was a huge Randall guy because he was with him in New Orleans and was, I think, instrumental in endorsing the deal in the first place. And what I also like about the story beyond that, patience, believe it or not, there is still some virtue to it, is this guy's been coaching, he started coaching in England. He's been coaching forever, a bunch of meaningless, anonymous places. I always like when coaches who kind of, grow up in the game that way, authentically, not by being a color analyst for 3 years or whatever, excel, that they have the opportunity. And in his case, at least so far, he's done really well with it. I think that's always a good story for the league.
Great story. And, as you were telling me this about his background and coming up the way he did, I think Nick Nurse was the same way.
Yeah, right.
Nick Nurse doing a lot of G League stuff and bouncing around and coaching. I don't know if he coached overseas. He may have. And then obviously once he gets to Toronto, he moves to the big seat and helps them win a title. And he's considered a very, very good coach too. So this is a great story. Dagnall's a great story for Oklahoma City. I heard today on the starting lineup with Isola and Scalabrine, they had on the play-by-play man for the Oklahoma City Thunder, who's Matt Pinto, and he's getting on J.B. Bickerstaff at a big interview, I guess, on ESPN, where he didn't even pronounce his name right, so he was killing him about that. So, you get that kind of mentality in Oklahoma City where there's this, no respect for their coach. But these are great. These are tremendous stories. So, yeah, you're right. It's not – they didn't take the kind of Doc Rivers, approach or, the guys who do the broadcasting and then they get in the league and then they, and they can be successful too that way. So, look, there's a lot of guys who teams take shots on. I remember back in the day, and Jeff always reminds me of the Jeff Van Gundy, when it came time for when Pat Riley's moving on and they're looking for another coach and they try to get, they brought in Don Nelson. They try to get Chuck Daly. That didn't work out. Nelly coached like 59 games because he demoted Patrick Ewing for Anthony Mason in the offense. And so he was gone. And when it came time to name a successor, a permanent successor, I gave Van Gundy no chance. And he did a hell of a job in New York.
Yes,
these guys who kind of work and stay anonymous and they just work their butts off. And they're great behind the scenes and they know what they're doing and they're great teachers. There is a place for them. They just have to have somebody who's, going to, who sees what they're doing and is going to roll the dice on them because you just don't know how a guy's going to do moving over from a number 2 seat to a number 1 seat.
Mitch Lawrence joining us just a couple more minutes here before the top of the hour break and the top 5 at 5 with Guardsy. You got to know Popovich pretty well. He's moving on to a new role, obviously, where he's no longer going to be coaching. And we haven't talked much to you since that story broke and probably should have got into it last time. But give me, for you, what thoughts are triggered when you think of the Popovich coaching run?
Oh, my gosh. Well, he changed a lot about how he approached teams and how he approached the game. He changed he's like the anti-Joe Mazzulla. He would change things up. He changed things from year to year if he had to. Development of players. He was just a phenomenal. The greatest thing that ever happened to that franchise. Just think about it. It's I think at one point it still might be the smallest media market in North America, and they have the luck of the draw, and they get the guys like Robinson and obviously Tim Duncan. But you have to have somebody in a place who's going to also get the other talent and the talent that they brought in around him. He has a lot to do with that. He was running the organization, obviously, which is very, very hard to do as you're coaching too. And I know he has, R.C. Buford there as a longtime guy. But, he is historically got to be a, top 5 coach in the history of the league because of what he was able to build, but also his ability to see, this isn't going to work now, so I now will embrace three-point shooting, or I'm now going to embrace this. We're not going to be just the low-post team anymore running through Duncan, and we're going to change it up. That takes a lot of brains and a lot of cojones to do that when you've been successful coaching one way. So he obviously did that. I saw a story. Is it true that they're actually thinking about changing the name of the airport?
Really?
San Antonio to the Greg Popovich.
I didn't read that. Wow.
That is, there's no bigger guy. You've been to San Antonio.
Yes.
We're talking about it's the Riverwalk. It's a small little South Central Texas town. You talk about college atmosphere games back in the day at the Hemisphere. They had that going. But the guy, there's nobody more important in the history of that franchise than Greg Popovich in terms of what he did for that team, that city, and that fan base, because I mean, the 5 titles, and they're always competitive, and he had the great playoff streak, and, it was just a remarkable run. Now, he's 75 or 76, and he's coming off what looked like and I'm not a doctor, but I looked at all the press conference clips like you did. That looked like a major stroke, not a minor stroke, because he still doesn't have use of his right or left arm. I can't remember which. It was harrowing to watch. I don't really know what he's going to do now.
Sure. I
mean, they say he's going to still, to me, it may just be, he's going to be there a name and he'll be there. But, listen, there's a lot of pressure running teams and doing stuff like that still. So is he up to that? I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are wondering the same thing privately. They're hoping, but they're wondering, practically speaking.
Yeah, I never thought he was coming back to coach.
Yeah.
There was so much stress. Ugh. There was so much pressure that a man who has a stroke, who's 75, and let's not forget, I looked up some of the top coaches and when they retired. Guys like Chuck Daly, Pat Riley, Red Auerbach. You look at pictures of Red Auerbach when he's coaching his last year. He's 48 years old.
It's crazy to think about, isn't it?
Looks like he's 78, or 60, 72.
Yes.
And you have Riley, Phil Jackson. These guys are quitting in their 60s. This guy's 75 years old. That's a remarkable run. We'll never see it again.
Great stuff as always, my friend. We'll keep in touch as this thing plays out. Thank you, Mitch.
Okay, thanks, guys. Talk to you.
Always a pleasure. Mitch Lawrence, you can hear him often on the Sirius XM NBA channel, where Sam Mitchell has a Saturday show, and in fact, Sam committed to weekly visits with us as long as the Wolves were still in the playoffs, and they obviously are. So I'm even trying to get him tomorrow to react to Game 1, but he'll be in the mix, and we always appreciate Mitch's contributions to the bit. I don't know. People around here might be starting to get nervous because, there's still more nationally big name guys who are picking Okie City, but there's still a decent number of folks that I respect who are picking the Wolves to win. So we'll see how that plays out.
I think our audience liked it better when, like, Mike Trudell was telling us there was no way we could beat the Lakers, and Sam Gordon was making the Warriors sound like the 2015 Warriors. It's a little different this time around.
It's not a very comfortable feeling for what we're accustomed to, correct? That's the problem.
Definitely not.
Yeah. On the other hand, if it works out, it's even better. Top 5 will include what?
Dwayne Wade on Jimmy Butler, Cam Bynum on J.J. McCarthy, and how excited are you to watch Justin Jefferson in the Olympics?